chosen one, manifested. You sensed shifts before they happened. You felt warnings before disasters. You knew when relationships had expired even when they looked fine on the surface. That's the burden of leadership. You see what others ignore, and you feel responsible even when no one asked you to. Many times you wished someone would lead you. Someone would show you the way. Someone would decide for you, but that help never came. Not because you were forgotten, but because you were the help. Heaven doesn't send leaders guidance the same way it sends followers instructions. Leaders are expected to hear directly. That's why your intuition is strong. That's why your inner voice is loud. That's why you've always felt an internal pressure to move, change, build, or speak, even when logic told you to stay quiet. You were chosen to lead because you can carry weight without becoming bitter. You've been betrayed and still kept your heart clean. You've been overlooked and still showed integrity. You've been doubted and still showed up disciplined. That is rare, and rarity is always positioned in front, not behind. Leadership is not about popularity, it's about responsibility. And responsibility has followed you your entire life, even when you didn't want it. You noticed it early on. People leaned on you, came to you for advice, expected you to have answers, even when you were hurting, even when you were young, even when you felt unqualified. That wasn't coincidence, that was assignment. Leaders often become strong because weakness was never an option. You had to mature faster, think deeper, decide quicker. And while others were free to drift, you were being shaped. That's why following feels unnatural to you. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You can respect leaders, learn from them, even serve under them, but deep down, you know you were not designed to stay there forever. At some point, you must step forward. And that moment often comes after the season where you doubt yourself the most. Right before elevation, leaders experience hesitation, because stepping into authority means stepping into visibility, and visibility invites resistance. You've held back before, shrunk yourself, silenced your ideas, delayed your calling because you didn't want to stand out. But every time you ignored your leadership instinct, life felt heavy. Because chosen ones don't lose peace when they lead, they lose peace when they don't. You weren't created to echo voices. You were created to set direction. That's why when you speak from truth, people either feel inspired or exposed. Leadership reveals what people are avoiding. And here's the truth many don't tell you. Leaders are attacked before they are celebrated, misunderstood before they are trusted, isolated before they are followed. That's why your journey has felt harder. That's why you've faced spiritual resistance, emotional fatigue, and moments of deep questioning. The enemy never fights what has no influence. The pressure you've felt is proof of the impact you carry. You were chosen to lead because you can walk ahead without applause. You can build without recognition. You can stay obedient even when no one understands the vision. That's not common. That's why not everyone is chosen for it. Followers are needed, but leaders are rare, and you didn't choose this path. It chose you. Even now, something is stirring in you. A reminder, a confirmation, a quiet but powerful knowing that you are stepping into a new phase. One where you stop waiting for permission. One where you trust what you carry. One where you move even if you're the only one who believes at first. That's leadership, and that's who you've always been. The moment you stop resisting who you are, everything begins to realign. Leadership is not something you suddenly become, it is something you finally accept. For a long time, you tried to negotiate with your calling, hoping it would soften, shrink, or wait until you felt more ready. But chosen ones are never fully ready before they move. Readiness comes after obedience. That's why this season feels intense. You're standing at the edge of responsibility, and your spirit knows it's time to step forward, even if your mind is still catching up. There is a shift happening within you that others can't see yet. It's a quiet strengthening, a deep settling, a calm authority replacing old insecurity. You're no longer asking who will go with you, you're asking where you're meant to go. That change matters. Leaders stop measuring safety by numbers and start measuring it by alignment. You've learned that being surrounded doesn't always mean being supported, and being alone doesn't mean being off track. Some paths are narrow because they are meant for those who can carry weight without applause. You're beginning to understand why certain doors never opened, even when you prayed for them. Those doors would have placed you under systems that could not contain what you carry. You were never meant to be managed. You were meant to build. That's why authority figures either tried to suppress you or promote you prematurely. True leadership threatens fragile egos, and when you didn't play the role expected of you, confusion followed. But confusion is often the first response to something that doesn't fit old frameworks. This is the season where your voice changes. Not louder but clearer. Not aggressive but grounded. You no longer explain yourself to be understood. You speak because it's true. Leaders reach a point where validation loses its grip. You've been misunderstood enough to stop trying to control perception. Now you move with integrity instead of image. And integrity attracts the right people at the right time. The ones who are meant to follow you won't need convincing. They'll recognize alignment. You may feel a holy pressure to act, to initiate, to move first. That's not impatience. That's leadership urgency. Leaders are often troubled by stagnation because they sense time differently. You know when something has expired. You know when a conversation needs to happen. You know when a step must be taken. And when you delay, your spirit feels heavy. That's because leaders are accountable not only for themselves, but for the momentum they carry. There will be moments where fear tries to return, not fear of failure, but fear of visibility. Because leadership exposes you to opinion, criticism, and resistance. But you've already survived worse in silence. You've been judged without a platform, misunderstood without explanation, attacked without defense. What's coming now is lighter than what you've already endured. The difference is this time, you won't be standing alone, you'll be standing in authority. You're also learning that leadership doesn't mean doing everything yourself. It means discerning who to trust, what to delegate, and when to rest. Burnout is not a badge of honor, it's a sign of misalignment. You were never meant to prove your strength by exhaustion. You were meant to model balance through wisdom. This is where your leadership matures. You stop striving and start stewarding. You stop forcing and start guiding. Some people will resist your rise because it disrupts their comfort. When you step into leadership, you force others to confront their stagnation. Not everyone will celebrate that. Some will test you. Some will question you. Some will try to pull you back into old versions of yourself. But leaders don't negotiate with nostalgia. You honor the past, but you don't live there. Growth requires forward movement, even when it costs familiarity. You'll notice that your standards are changing. What you tolerate is decreasing. What you require is increasing. That's not arrogance, it's clarity. Leaders understand that lowering standards to keep peace creates long-term chaos. You are becoming more selective with your time, your energy, and your words. That's because leadership demands focus. Distractions are expensive when you carry vision. There will be moments where you feel the weight of responsibility deeply. When decisions affect others, when outcomes matter, when the margin for error feels smaller. But remember, pressure doesn't crush leaders, it reveals them. And what's being revealed in you is steadiness. You don't panic, you don't fold, you don't abandon purpose when things get uncomfortable. That's why you were chosen. This season is also about courage, not reckless courage, but quiet conviction. The courage to say no when it would be easier to say yes. The courage to speak truth when silence would protect you. The courage to move ahead even when support hasn't arrived yet. Leaders don't wait for consensus, they move with clarity. And clarity has been growing in you step by step, moment by moment. You may not see the full impact of your leadership yet, but it's already working. Every time you chose integrity over ease, you set a standard. Every time you walked away from what didn't align, you created space. Every time you trusted your inner knowing, you strengthened your authority. Leadership is built in private long before it's seen in public. And understand this, Being chosen to lead does not mean you are above others. It means you are accountable to more. You carry influence whether you want to or not. Your actions speak louder. Your choices ripple further. Your consistency matters more. That's why your growth has been intentional. That's why your pruning was severe. That's why your lessons were deep. You were being prepared to lead without losing yourself. As you move forward, resist the temptation to look back for reassurance. The past can't confirm the future. What you're stepping into requires faith, not familiarity. You are not late. You are not behind. You are right on time for the version of you that can handle what's coming. Leadership always feels heavy right before it feels natural. You were chosen to lead not because you wanted power, but because you learned humility. Not because you sought control, but because you developed discernment. Not because you were loud, but because you were consistent. And that kind of leadership lasts. It builds, it influences, it transforms. Now is the moment to stop shrinking your presence and start honoring your assignment. You don't need permission to be who you are. You don't need approval to move forward. You don't need confirmation from those who never understood your journey. The call is clear. The path is opening, and the leadership within you is no longer waiting, it's rising.